And then I think we're good to go with Mohammadreza to start us off today. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
I'll keep an eye on this.
Yeah. Okay. Today I'm going to talk about the interactive storytelling for virtual reality medium and present a narrative structure for interactive storytelling in virtual reality, which I call it a story without end. And the title of my project is the interactive storytelling for virtual reality medium by real walking inside virtual storyboard, and I will describe each part of this and how this narrative structure match this title. First, let's start with the blue story, which is the base of my approach to design the narrative for virtual reality. As Deleuze discussed, cinematic narrative, and I emphasize on cinematic narrative, and it means that the things that are pre-recorded and presented to audiences. The cinematic narratives created through moving object and moving camera, and through combining this to the filmmaker tell their stories. Because the point is that the movement is the creator of duration, and the audiences perceive dramatic events through the duration. So the cinema, as the art of the moving picture, is in narrative part, is use the framed movement. The filmmaker frame every movement that they want inside the frame and create an out of field, and with interacting between these two, what audiences can see and what they can't see, they tell their stories. And in this course, cinema is made from snapshots, the frames, 24 frames per second, which is give the filmmaker the ability to tell a story. So my first question was that what is the generic element for virtual reality medium? Because the virtual reality medium is completely different, and there is no frame in virtual reality because it's some kind of storytelling for immersive environment, or an immersive cinema. And in this medium, audiences interpret the events by using their natural way of perception, like a real life experience. So they, like us right now, bonded to their spatial temporal coordination and perceive the world. So we right now perceive our world and the things that happen around us in a flux of space-time. That's why I put the spatial temporal coordination as the generic element that can help me inside the virtual environment to understand how my audiences interpret my pre-recorded content, and then start to design and relate them together. Because the audiences, the reader, read the story by interacting with the story by changing their spatial temporal coordination, the real walking inside virtual storyboard. And the designer, the writer, actually designing and relating blocks of space-time. And that's how we can create stories and interactive stories inside the medium of virtual reality. That's my project that I'm working on it right now. Deja-vu. This is my viewpoint. I put a VR headset and start walking in this environment, which is the space of my movie. a story is concentrated on an architect. Is annoyed by a memory of rejection by a character leaves a former life. So he decides to create in time to change the event as he wishes. He designed a place where he met Liz to express his love again. He, the architect, created 3 different timelines that face today, each centered in one of these parallel universes. In one, the young architect, which the name is Tom, is waiting for Liz in order to express his feelings and suffer the rejection again, the same events that happened in the past. In another, the architect explained to Liz how she had previously rejected him, which in effect caused him to design this virtual reality. And in the final universe, the architect and Liz are a happy couple visiting the later, the architect experiences a deja-vu and realizes that there's a glitch in the matrix he has designed. And the audiences recognize that the intervention of the virtual system caused Liz to reject the proposal in the first instance. It believes an interaction between the current virtual reality system and the event from the past. And the scenario for the audience's experience is that these audiences enter the movie from any of this scene. They can choose this, then while they are inside the virtual storyboard, they can see all 3 different parallel universes at the same time. They can walk freely among the other characters and objects within the scene, and they can transport them to the other universes by touching this doors, which are not in timelines. And as you can see, each parallel universe has its own direction of gravity. And this is the story map for this movie, which the story comes through 3 different storylines, and each character can travel between the scene, but in each universe they have a different personality except for the architect, who is the creator of this space. And I designed the story map by dividing each storyline into 3 periods to help me synchronize these 3 stories. And as you can see, the storyline 1, P1 is concurrent with the storyline 2, scene 3, and storyline 3, scene 2. And I start synchronizing all this movement of character between the spaces and synchronize the events in each scene in this way. And it helped me to write a story in 2 different orders. One is the order of each storyline, each timeline, each universes. The events happen in each universes at their own order, and each character journey, because my audiences can walk between these universes, so they can follow the character. So the character has to have their own story as well. So I create another order of the events. And that's why I can create a story without end, because by use of the virtual reality medium, I create 2 loops. A loop in each storyline is repeated through the time, and a loop in the story of each character. For example, if you see, you can see that the architect starts from storyline 1, P1, then go to that point, storyline 2, P1, then storyline 3P1, and then back to the first thing, the place that he started, and it repeated. And the audiences, when come to experience this movie, there's no specific end for this movie. They just wander around this board, to find their interpretation of the story. And for writing for such a movie and such a story map and this medium, I have to consider this three. The script writing have to consider the virtual space, because I have to find the abilities of my audiences to interpret the story. So in each step, I consider the medium while I'm writing, and then when I come to seeking for the technologies, I find the time gates. I implement the time gates in my story to create the loop, and this is exactly the thing that the technology gave me to write a new thing and a new method of storytelling. And the technologies and virtual spaces, I seek this to find the interaction pattern, new interaction pattern, for my audiences, and this helped me to add something to my script. So it's an interaction between these three that helped me to find a good structure and a good story for this movie. So my project is interactive storytelling for virtual reality medium. And the story Withoutend, this structure is an open world storytelling for cinema, which is a new structure, and give this ability to audiences to walk inside pre-recorded content. I emphasize that, pre-recorded content, but interact with this content in this way. And real walking inside virtual storyboard, which is the spatial setting, spatial temporal coordination as the generic elements of storytelling for virtual reality, helped me to find how my audiences interpret my movie. And finally, I will invite you, to help me in technical and theoretical part of this and participate in my practices. Right now, I prepared a practice, The Man Who Disorientated in the Time. It's an experimental 360 movie, and by scanning this QR code, you can book a date to experience this movie and then filling some questionnaire. Thank you for listening.